Live from the Panera Studios, it's the Reading with Robin show, brought to you each week by my friends at Panera Bread, where we're kicking off the new year with food as it should be. One of my favorite things at Panera is to grab a nice warm bowl of soup, perfect for these wintry days. And when you just, when you just don't know what you want for lunch or dinner, grab a bowl of soup. My favorite right now is the vegetarian autumn squash soup. I also love their vegetarian creamy tomato. All the soups are delicious and come with your choice of chips, bread, or an apple. It's the new year. I think I'll be picking the apple. All at Panera Bread. Reading with Robin also brought to you by Point Street Reading Series, where you can find us the third Tuesday of every month at the Village RI at 373 Richmond Street, right in Providence in the Jewelry District. For reservations, you can find me on Point Street Reading Series Facebook page. Send me a message. Let me know you're coming or just show up. Coming up on Tuesday, January 17th, as we kick off the 2017 reading series, we have authors Amy Popel, Fiona Davis, Hank Philippi Ryan, and Bob Perlow, with special guest appearances by Need Donuts of Providence, brand new Need Donuts, and Paco's Tacos of Cranston and Warwick, with delicious treats for everyone to share. See you at Point Street Reading Series. And now, enjoy the show.
I'm thrilled to be able to chat this morning with Mackenzie Dawson, who is a brand new books editor at the New York Post. NewYorkPost.com has been my first stop of the day since I've been online forever, and then the newspaper going back as far as I can remember. Mackenzie studied journalism and mass communication at NYU. She lives in New York City, and one of these days soon, we're actually going to meet. Welcome back to Reading with Robin, Mackenzie Dawson.
Thanks so much, Robin. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. I was patient. You made the announcement like 4 weeks ago, I think you said, that you were the books editor, and I was just so excited because you and I met on Facebook and bonded via books. So you're a book person. We absolutely did. And then I saw that you were the books editor, and I was just so happy for you. Like, what is it like to get that gig? You're welcome.
Oh, it's absolutely a dream job. So I have, I've been a reader my entire life. So to get to spend my day just kind of looking at books is pretty amazing.
Oh, my God. I'm so excited for you. I really was. That was like really big, happy news.
Thank you.
In a year that's had some interesting news.
Yeah.
Tuesday, January 3rd, 2017, and I'm ringing in the new year with Mackenzie Dawson. And so at what point did the books just start flooding?
I have to say it was pretty quick after the announcement, maybe 4 days later.
Wow.
I was impressed by how quickly it happened.
The book people move swiftly.
They do. They
right?
do. They took note, and I appreciated it because it saved me having to send out too many emails kind of saying, please add me to your list.
You were added immediately. It was like people saw that, add Mackenzie to the list. And do they send you everything, or are there certain books that you're more interested in reviewing?
There are definitely certain books that we're more interested in covering, but they do send me everything, which is how I prefer it. Because even when something doesn't tend to fall under our purview, there's always a chance that there's something in it for us that could be of interest. For instance, we don't tend to cover a lot of novels because we don't run reviews per se. We do features about books, and usually nonfiction books lend themselves more easily to features. But that said, like sometimes a novel will be of interest to us because it might be a novel that's based on something real. And we can, get into it with a kind of nice meaty feature about the backstory. The book, the novel Lilac Girls from the previous year was a perfect example of that.
Well, that's like hitting pay dirt then, because when a publication really doesn't focus that much. Same as some of the morning shows on novels, but that it works well as the backstory.
Exactly.
Right?
Or also something like if something is a novel but it's kind of part of the cultural conversation and it happens to be about something that's just very relevant at this point in time, then we're always interested in taking a look at that. Something like the novel Class by Lucinda Rosenfeld, which is coming out in about a week. That's a perfect example of that. She's kind of making fun of a kind of liberal bubble community in Brooklyn about the whole issue of public schooling and issues connected to that. And I read it and thought it was hilarious and very sharp. So that's the kind of thing that, obviously that's something that is in the news a lot, and so it's interesting because of that.
That makes sense. So there's a way to tie it in. It's funny. I saw because we're Facebook friends. I saw that you had, I think it was a Goodreads post, and I thought to myself, Lucinda Rosenfeld has a new book. How did I miss that? I loved I'm So Happy for You. I think it was that book where she's crossing her fingers. That's that cover where she's crossing her fingers behind her back. And we had a great interview. Oh, my goodness, I think that book must be 7 years old. I'm not sure. It might have been the last time I spoke to her. So that's Class, and it comes out the next week then, January 10th?
I believe right? January 10th, yeah.
Okay, and on the phone is Mackenzie Dawson. She is the books editor at the New York Post. Oh, my God, what a job. And you can follow her on Twitter. You're so much fun to follow at M. Sullivan Dawson. So if you're on Twitter, and who isn't, follow her at M. Sullivan Dawson. So there's a good example. So it would sound like also historical fiction lends itself well.
Yes.
And it's a story, it's kind of like you mentioned, the Lilac Girls. So 2017, I know a lot of the lists are out, and I'm working on mine. I should have it. I just keep looking at it, and it's so hard to narrow them down or
I know.
Which ones, right, do you highlight? Are you getting more? I know you're getting them. They're coming to you at the Post, but are you looking at some of the lists and saying, okay, got to add that one in, can't miss that one? It's a lot of books.
Yes, absolutely. For instance, something that I'm excited about, which is coming out in, I think, March 7th, is called The Stranger in the Woods, The Extraordinary Story of the Last True Hermit by Michael Finkel. Ooh. And it's this story about this guy. I mean, I remember reading the news articles about it at the time, but this guy basically leaves his home in Massachusetts, goes up to Maine, disappears into the woods, and basically didn't have a conversation with another person for the next 3 decades. He eventually was arrested because he was breaking into people's summer homes and just kind of getting some food and provisions and stuff like that. Security cameras eventually caught him, but for a while there, like they were they were kind of upsetting burglaries that were had everyone on edge. And it's just kind of the story of him like returning to the world, and I don't know, sounds pretty interesting.
Wow, and that comes out in March, and what is the title again?
The title is The Stranger in the Woods, The Extraordinary Story of the Last True Hermit.
And it sounds like, when is the movie coming out?
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't have.
And who will be playing the last true hermit?
And what is the dialogue of 3 decades of talking?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's that dialogue coach? That's what I want to know. That is amazing. I can't imagine not speaking for 3 minutes.
Oh, I know.
I don't know about that. That is wild. Well, see, now that sounds absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I thought so.
I can't miss that one. Yeah, and you described them so well. That's the other thing too. It's like,
thank
can't
you.
do that. Oh, you're welcome. And are you a particularly fast reader?
I'm a pretty fast reader.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. If I'm into something, like last week I was home, at my parents' house in Maine, and I think I probably read 4 books in
That's impressive.
4 days.
And so that cuts down on the visiting as well. Is that like you at night, or are you like, it's enough family?
Mostly at night. Mostly at night. During the week, I am also a huge fan of the Quiet Car on Metro North.
Yes.
And I often, post about various Quiet Car issues. And
yes, I love it.
One of the reasons I'm such a Quiet Car zealot is because that's when I read. Yes. So, I live in Westchester. I have a commute that's just under an hour, and so that means that's 2 hours of reading for me every day. And so if someone is yakking in my car, then that becomes a problem.
I love reading that. What is it about the Quiet Car? It says Quiet Car. I wonder if people think, well, they don't mean me. They think they're whispering, or they got stuck in the Quiet Car.
I think there are definitely the people that get stuck. So I always, if I decide to shush, I always kind of start from assuming that they don't know. So I think some people get stuck, some people don't know. And then some people, I don't know, because I've witnessed some pretty amazing scenes where other people will say, hey, it's the Quiet Car, and then the person will kind of wave them off and keep talking. And it's like, I don't know.
And you're riding the car. I mean, for a lot of this is a commuter train, so a lot of these people are familiar at some point, right? And you're going to run up against them, and they just think the rules don't apply. But I think that's so kind that you start off from a place of, did you know this was the Quiet Car?
Just a heads up.
Just so maybe you found yourself in the wrong spot, and you have so many books. Maybe you could hand out books that they could read to shush them. Kind of like the Good Samaritan book lady.
I could just rifle around in my bag and find whatever I happen to have with me.
You could have like adjunct book reviewers in the Quiet Car with Mackenzie. I love reading your tweets because that's something that my daughter and I like doing too. We're just like trained vigilantes, and the same thing happens on Amtrak in the Quiet Car. And it is a great place. And if you have just under that is a really nice chunk of time to be able to get reading in. And do people ever ask you? So you read a book? You're not on a Kindle or?
I do both. I'm platform agnostic in that regard.
Okay.
I don't care if the book is what form it's coming in. I tend to do the iPad at night so that it's not keeping my husband up with like a bedside table light. But I do both.
So do people come up to you and ask, or are you a reader that wants to engage, or do people sort of back off? Because I'm always curious what someone's reading. So I wonder if you just I'm reading, so that means leave me alone, or are you happy to chat?
I'm happy. I'm not happy to chat if I'm in the Quiet Car, but
right.
But if I'm in another situation, possibly. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm always interested in what other people are reading, so I'm generally the person kind of looking over somebody's shoulder to see.
Me too. That's why I'm wondering.
To see what they're reading.
We're kindred bookshooters, so I was hoping you were going to answer in kind, because I love to know. I especially get excited, of course, when someone's reading a book where I know the author. And in fact, when we were traveling 2 weeks ago, somebody was reading an old Jodi Picoult book. But I took a picture. I tweeted it, Jodi. She loved it. I think that's so much fun.
Yeah.
And, to be able to share. Because when you're into books, there is that common bond. And so that's, and on the phone, chatting books is Mackenzie Dawson. She's books editor at the New York Post. And I really do love, there are so many book ideas I've gotten from the Post. And most recent, I know there was another one, but Seinfeldia I read about on the Post on NewYorkPost.com. And that's how I got in touch with Jennifer Armstrong. And there it went from there. But that was so much fun to read about. You do highlight some really, if you're talking about it on NewYorkPost.com, on New York Post, I want to read about it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, my history with the Post goes way back. I might have emailed you that. We used to cut out the headlines and hang them on our dorm room door. Tape. You know what that's like at the end of the year, taking that down? not easy, but they're great headlines. So let's get to more books. I know we talked about the one that comes out in March. And are these posted anywhere, or just we wait to see when you talk about them in the paper?
I think just when we talk about them in the paper.
So follow Mackenzie Dawson on the New York Post and pick up the paper and read all about it, which is what we do. Okay, so there's that one, and what's another one?
Another one that I think, okay, so if you're like me, I'm constantly trying to find like the latest good thriller, just constantly. And so
I'm not, by the way, but
really?
I appreciate people who are. I'm not a thriller reader, but I know there are some really good ones that have been sent, and I like to share about them because on Reading with Robin, I appreciate that everybody likes different things, and there's nothing like a good psychological thriller.
Yeah.
And so I love sharing them. So I'm very interested in.
So Peter Swanson, who wrote The Kind Worth Killing, has a book coming out on January 10th called Her Every Fear. It's about a woman who I actually just read this the other week. A woman has had a very troubled past, decides to switch apartments with her cousin in Boston in an effort to kind of put some of the she basically was attacked by an ex-boyfriend, and so in an effort to kind of put that behind her and start branching out more, she does this apartment swap, and basically the day after she arrives in Boston, the woman next door is murdered, and all sorts of stuff ensues from that. But it's very good.
Well, I know my daughter read it, and I did post about it and loved it so much. Mm-hmm. So for my thriller friends, Peter Swanson, Her Every Fear. I mean, that's such a scary title, you know.
Yep.
And so I think that sounds really great. Sounds like another great movie. And thrillers are so marketable, and people really are looking for them.
Well, I feel like we've in these past couple of years, like kicked off by Gone Girl, we've been definitely in a kind of thriller renaissance, like where there are just so many of them. I think the ones that are kind of being marketed to women, and which tend to play more on the psychological aspect of fear and not so much on like gore and that kind of thing. Those are really interesting.
Yeah, because you just can feel your heart racing, even as you were describing that. And so just moving into Boston, and then the neighbor, you're looking for some peace, and that's the last thing.
And then that happens the day after, promptly.
Yeah, and then that happens. What can we do to our heroine today? So people are looking for that. And if it were a choice between thriller and guts and gore, I'm going to go for thriller. Yeah, that's definitely where I would be going.
Yep, me too.
So that one comes out next week by Peter Swanson, Her Every Fear. Great cover on that one also.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2. And more from Mackenzie Dawson. Again, follow her on Twitter, especially if she's in the quiet car. And Sullivan Dawson on Twitter. And are you on Instagram?
No.
Okay, good. Well, then I didn't find it. But it's not on Instagram. It's good to sort of keep things to where you really want to participate, because it's really, social media is really obviously incredibly overwhelming. So.
Yeah, and most of what I want to share is always word related rather than visual. Yeah. So that's why I'm not on Instagram.
Unless you took pictures of the offenders. We could do
That's true. That's true. I could just post lots of pictures of books.
Absolutely right. There's that. All right, so 2017 may see an emergence of Mackenzie into the Instagram world, or goodness knows whatever's going to come. Who knows what's coming next?
Yeah.
If you wait, you'll be like at the beginning of the new thing.
Of the new thing, yeah.
Whatever the heck that is. Hopefully not too soon. I'm just covering myself on Instagram. So, and a memoir. Are there any memoirs you're looking forward to? Because I've seen some really good ones.
So there's this book called Unbound, a story of snow and self-discovery. Which is out January 24th. Mm-hmm. That's by Steph Jagger. and it's being marketed as kind of wild meets Eat, Pray, Love for skiing.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically someone who's, kind of tired of her corporate life and decides to kind of give it all up, buy a bunch of plane tickets, and follow winter across the world skiing.
I like that. Follow winter across the world.
Yeah.
And I got to think there's an awesome ski instructor / skier. There must be.
I'm sure there is. I have not read it yet, but
that must be
but
the
I
love
would
part.
guess that there is some kind of thing.
That would be the Eat, Pray, Love part of it. Yeah, and that's the thing too. When you get all of these books and you're sort of deciding the way they're marketed, it's so obviously there's a huge amount that goes into marketing and what's going to grab our attention, and then that sort of sets the expectation. And at what point do you put a book down? For you, like, do you give something a certain amount of pages? You're just not feeling it, or are you a finisher?
That's a good question. I would say I give it maybe 70 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm really not feeling it, then I have I don't mind just putting it aside.
Sure. So you get to it quickly, where it's not doing it for you, and people come to really then certainly rely on what it is that you're recommending and why it's a good read and what it will do for just to round out somebody's library or something new that they're looking for. And it's a lot of time that we invest in reading.
Mm-hmm.
So you're charged with a very heady task, Mackenzie Dawson, the New York Post. What are you reading right now?
Right now, what I'm reading right now is that the huge biography of Hitler that came out in the fall. And
wow, I didn't know that was the answer I was going to get. That huge biography of
it's like
fill in the blank.
It's like 800 pages or something, and I have to say it is some slow going.
Wow!
But,
so you read along. So you're able to read a few at a time. Like you'll put it down.
Oh yeah, I'll read like 3 books at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm reading.
So Hitler. What
Hitler.
else?
Then wait, I just started this other thriller. I kind of had like a week of nonfiction stuff, and so then I was trying to kind of mix it up.
I like to mix it up, right? There are some books that, while they're not the same, certainly they're too similar to read back to back.
Yeah,
and I like to do that also. It's like a palate cleanser, kind of.
It is like a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
So this is what I was reading over Christmas was. I'm just going into my Goodreads right now.
Yeah, I'm so bad.
Okay.
I am so bad at Goodreads. I have an account, and people are like, "Can we follow Reading with Robin on Goodreads?" And you can, but I've done several reviews. If somebody really asks, I can't. I don't. You do that to keep track. I'm sure that's a good idea.
I just do it. I don't do reviews.
Sure.
I just I'll assign a star rating, but I don't write anything besides that, and it is just easier for me to keep track.
I guess I'll do that. Maybe that'll be my 2017 new trick.
So I read a novel called They Are Trying to Break Your Heart about the Boxing Day tsunami. That one is already out.
Okay.
I think that one was out in the spring. And I recently, also in the memoir department, I recently read How to Murder Your Life by Kat Marnell. That is out in late January.
Is that so good? The cover is awesome. It looks like a tie-dyed young.
Yeah, I really liked it, and I don't normally like memoirs about addiction at all. Like it doesn't tend to interest me as a topic, but this one was an exception.
Well, it looks really amazing. It was an editor at Lucky Magazine?
She was a beauty editor, yeah.
Beauty,
and
okay.
so she was, had this kind of amazing job, but a, huge drug addiction and would kind of, so it's kind of the juxtaposition between this, glamorous Condé Nast job and how much her life was kind of falling apart. then later on when she moved to Exojane, she started kind of writing about both beauty and addiction at the same time, often in the same article. So there were a lot of people who felt afterwards like it was kind of exploiting her.
Okay.
People wondered, like, well, why was this allowed to put up for clicks when it was obviously someone who was really needing help? I thought it was really interesting.
That is really interesting. So she was writing about her addiction in the beauty columns, but not addiction to beauty, just addiction.
Nope. Addiction, yep.
Very interesting. I love memoir about addiction. No, I mean, I can't read 10 million of them, but like Lisa Smith's A Girl Works Out of a Bar last summer was one of my favorites. It's such a fabulous memoir about addiction. I guess I have read several. That was one of my favorites. And so when I saw this one, How to Murder Your Life, because there are a few books coming out with murder or dead in the title. And I don't know, I like to play this little game with books. When they come, I'm like, oh, look, these will go together. Or they're using, there's several coming out with sunshine in the title or whatever. I like to see patterns in my books. Talking about a book nerd. These are one of the things I do with my books, Mackenzie, when I'm home with all of them. So that one comes out at the end of January. Any other, I guess before I let you go, a final book that you'd like to share, one that's coming out or one that you think will be really buzzing, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, whichever you prefer?
I would say I'm interested in something called The Futures.
That's the one I'm looking at, to tell you.
Are you looking at that right now?
Yeah, I was going to say, if Mackenzie doesn't mention this one. Now, is that see, that's my kind of fiction.
Totally my kind of fiction, yeah.
Oh, so we like the same kind?
Yeah.
Okay, we got to chat again.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm really looking forward to this.
Funny. That one comes out January 17th by Anna Petoniak. Is that how you say it? Right? So this is a debut, nothing like a debut. I'm so glad you love that.
I'm excited about that. And you know how so in the department of writers that you wish could write even faster than they already do.
Yeah.
Chris Pavone, the author of The Expats, The Accident, and The Travelers.
Yeah.
I mean, he writes pretty much a book a year, so I shouldn't be complaining.
That's not enough. Okay.
I like him so much because I'm a huge travel junkie. So whenever somebody writes books about that combine, intrigue and foreign locations, then I'm into that.
So you're all there.
And that's that's his specialty.
Oh, so, that's awesome. So he needs to. So when was?
So if he is listening to this, he should start writing faster.
Write faster, Chris. I think, well, that's the thing. There are some authors where you think, at one, for example, would be Courtney Sullivan, and I'm so excited that her new book comes out in May because after the engagements, we've been waiting a little bit, Courtney.
Yeah.
She knows that. Yeah, so very excited that her new book comes out in May. Futures is a debut, and I worked with Anna. I don't remember which book she was editing. So when this came, I thought, I know that name. And then there it was, and I read The Futures over the summer. It was one of those books that came, and I had no business really reading it because I had other books that I'm sure you move them along on your pile sometimes, and there are dates and things, and it could have waited, but there was something about that book that just couldn't wait to me.
Yeah.
And I read it like one afternoon, and I was just so excited, and now it's finally out in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, wait a minute, that was so long ago. But
yeah,
right? So, so you and I are definitely on the same page because that's the definition of one of those kinds of books that I just loved.
Yep.
So very excited. And then Courtney Sullivan's new book is Saints for All Occasions.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes out, well, it says June 3rd. It comes out in May. They moved it back. So that one, but there are some authors where you're like, okay, please write another book, write another book. So lots to look forward to. Look for everything on New York Post. Check out what Mackenzie is talking about. If you see her on the train, let her read. And you can find her on Twitter at msullivandawson. Happy New Year. Happy reading.
Happy New Year. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you, and I'll see you soon, I hope.